Disruptive collaboration is not how do we weather the storm, how do we wait it out and see what happens. Disruptive collaboration is the willingness to pull together in a way that is so disruptive, it actually creates new opportunities. As we're thinking about disruptive collaboration, here's one way to hopefully clarify it. Let me share the contrast. The opposite of this disruptive collaboration is destructive conformity. Destructive conformity. Basically, consensus kills courage. I love this quote, "To a hammer, everything looks like a nail." And so maybe that's your strength, and that's what you do. You're the hammer. You show up and you just hit hard and that's you, right? Well, not every tool is a hammer and not every job needs a hammer. And so we've got to be thinking about the whole tool belt instead of just the hammer. And if you put a hammer where you need another tool, then it could be destructive. And so we've got to have this disruptive collaboration where there are new opportunities and more options than we had before, simply because we were willing to make creative connections. People were willing to come together. And when you're talking about pioneering the future and what's possible and the future of business, the future of education, the future of, what's going on in your city, it's going to be the renaissance of relationship that brings new ideas to the forefront, that really calls people to take action in a way that, just the the hating coalition format doesn't do, right? Like, yes, we can form coalitions around what we're against, but if we could learn how to form coalitions around what we're for and what's possible and how we're going to pioneer a hopeful future for our families, kids, for the next generation, then I think we have a huge opportunity. So it's all about being willing to come together in some really unique ways with some unlikely alliances at first. But even though it feels unlikely on the surface, you see that you're way more aligned than you thought before. There's a scripture that I love. It says, "We no longer look after the flesh." It means we don't judge people just by the way they look. We look at the content of their character, we see their values, and we see the fruit of their life. Maybe, you're in ministry and you need to connect with an entrepreneur this year, because the entrepreneur is going to teach you how to know your numbers and how to, lead lean and how to communicate a message at scale. And there's like a huge value there, right? There's a huge connection. Even though it seems unlikely at first, it can be an unlikely alliance that you're going to need to get into the hopeful future. And what I love about these unlikely alliances, they create disruptive collaboration. They make things possible that weren't possible before, but they're always win-win. You're the entrepreneur and you need to be open to let a spiritual leader, a faith leader, speak into your team and your business, because they're picking up on human behavior. They're seeing the motives in people's hearts. They know how to bring people together to do caregiving really well. They understand some of the nuanced challenges in a really helpful perspective. That way you can actually get breakthrough instead of breaking down. They have a deep sense of reliance on God that creates resilience through the challenges of life. I'm just going to throw this idea out and I'll see which of you pioneer thinkers will run with it. What if some entrepreneurs and some business owners actually adopted a faith leader and they bring them into the organization and they actually say, we see you as a mission critical component. Would you coach us? Would you, speak into what we're doing? And then vice versa. What if some, faith leaders and ministry leaders, they actually open their teams up to some of the wins that are going on in other industries, and they begin to import the best parts of the kingdom culture that are showing up in these other spaces, and maybe they didn't, initially work in a nonprofit context, but we're actually learning things that are transferable. And so I think that's just one example of being willing to listen and learn, and even learning how to lead in a different field. You know, when you show up in a different space, you're a guest, right? So you have to know like how to show up and add value. And I think that's one of the big challenges for leaders right now is either they have imposter syndrome or they have just not been preparing. And so whether they feel like they don't have it or they really don't have it, they're still holding back from sharing their value to other people. And scripture says your gift makes room for you and brings you before great people. And so the question that I would have for you right now as you're looking into 2025 and beyond is like, are you willing to share the thing that you've been preparing with other people? Because if you're willing to share it, if you're willing to give in a few minutes or a few weeks what took you years and maybe decades to prepare, it could actually open you up to new fields and way more opportunities than you thought possible. It comes down to capacity, because when you have a greater capacity, you have more to give. And a lot of leaders, they struggle with bandwidth and they struggle with their willingness to handle more. They don't know how to manage multiple fronts, and they get overwhelmed and they literally shrink back under the pressure instead of being prepared to expand into new fields. The Lord's been preparing these windows of opportunity for you. The question is, are you, in the grace of God, preparing for them? My encouragement is be ready for these windows of opportunity. You can see what's possible, and now it's time to go for it, to really enter in. It may not look like you charging on your own. It may look like you being willing to show up in a space that you didn't start, in a company that you didn't, build. And it's the willingness to just venture out into these new fields so you can give, you can serve, you can be a strength to others. And then eventually you find these unlikely alliances that are meant to create a hopeful future. So remember, the future has so many fields waiting on you. That's why I want to encourage you, prepare to go there. All right now, if you like this video, go ahead and join the conversation. Please like and share, subscribe. It helps this podcast go to more pioneering leaders in business and ministry. And also, there is a call to action, an opportunity waiting for you right now. I don't want you to miss it. Click the link and let's work together.